First of all, I'd like to say thank you to New South Wales Trade and Investment for putting this show on. Oakland Resources has been around for a couple of years and we're definitely at the junior end of the market, so it's nice to get an opportunity to get up and actually talk about some of the stuff that we're doing. Of course, we have to put a disclaimer up. I'd like to just draw your attention to the very last line there, which hopefully you can actually read. There is some information in this presentation that I've cross-referenced back to our last couple of ASX releases. So if you want some further information, you can go there. So who is Oakland? Well, Oakland was a company that listed about 2 years ago. There's 30 million shares in the registry, so that means we actually have a very, very tight structure and we don't trade a hell of a lot, and you can see that by the graph down the bottom there. A good day might be 10 to 50,000 shares, and most of that was done on June the 30th this year. We're a dedicated porphyry, volcanic-hosted massive sulphide explorer, and we're here in New South Wales, and New South Wales is our focus. We call it the Lachlan Gold Province. It's what Minister Archer referred to in part as the Macquarie Arc. And the project that I'll speak about today, Wangoni, is located within the Macquarie Arc. There's 4 people on the board. Myself, who's Managing Director and Exploration Director. We have Vern Tidy, who's ex-Ernst & Young. He headed up their minerals commodities in Perth and in Sydney, so he's quite well used to the mineral side of life, and he's an auditor, so make sure our books are straight. Tony Poglace is a Cornish tin miner, and he's a metallurgical engineer, so he's a wonderful person to have on the board. And Scott Funston is part of the Garrison Capital Group, and Oakland is a Garrison company. I don't know whether that means much to you, but you may have heard of Who Knew Coal, which won an IPO of the year a couple of years ago, and that's one of the Garrison companies. With the 4 key projects, and I'm only going to speak about Wangoni today, we have Apsley, which is an advanced copper, silver, zinc project just to the south of Bathurst. We have an exploration target released on that, which is basically an inferred resource, and we have a number of other drill targets as well. I wanted to put this slide up just so that you're aware, that I'm aware of where we are actually in the market. This is a presentation given by the AusIMM a couple of months ago. I don't know whether anyone in the room was at that presentation. Show of hands, perhaps. This slide really brought home to me where a junior explorer actually is. Exploration is right down the bottom there, and our options for actually raising capital are actually very, very limited. So you can either go to the equity market to raise funds, or you can have private equity come in, or you've got asset sales. I thought this slide put it particularly well. The thing that actually concerned me more than anything else was that you basically have to get to a bankable feasibility study before there are any other options. So this slide made me sit down and think about what we're actually doing. We're a junior explorer. We've got about $860,000 in the bank. If we keep going with large amounts of expenditure, we're going to end up with zero. So it actually made us assess what we actually have, and our assets are potentially the main thing that we actually have. So this graph actually talks about asset sales, but one of the things we actually thought about was that you can actually do something with your assets and partner people into those projects. So where are the projects? Well, Sydney's located on the east coast. I'm actually based in Orange, which is here. We have a couple of projects north and south of Orange with the resource that I mentioned, or the exploration target at Apsley. And down towards Burra and Yass at Crosby, we have a drill target, and down at Billalingra, heading south of Canberra there. So the project I want to speak about today is Wangoni, and Mr Archer actually mentioned the Macquarie Arc, and Wangoni is located in the Macquarie Arc. It's an underexplored Kaidan Northparkes sequence. It's in the same sort of rocks that actually hosts Kaidan Northparkes. It has a geophysical signature which is not unlike those two deposits, and it has an alteration system which basically belongs into a gold-copper porphyry system. And this alteration is zoned, and that's very important if you actually want to go and find where the mineralisation actually has the best part of it. In part, it's under shallow cover, and that's what's hindered previous explorers. There's only 2 companies that have ever done work in the area. One was CRA in the early 1990s, and the other company was North in the late 1990s. And that cover was a barrier to their exploration. 100 metres, I think, in the mid-90s would have been considered quite significant cover. Now with discoveries like Ridgeway and Cadia East, where people are drilling 300 to 400 metres under cover. I also should point out the Vulcan project in South Australia, where Rio Tinto are currently drilling under 900 metres of cover, looking for an Olympic dam. So 100 metres is not necessarily a huge impediment to exploration these days, but it was 15 to 20 years ago. I've written down the bottom there just to remind me of the size of the prize. Cadia is a true world-class ore deposit. And Northparkes isn't too scungy either. Even though the published resource is about 2 million ounces and about 1.5 million tonnes of copper, with their step change program they've got going at the moment, that should bring the gold resource up to probably about 5 million ounces and probably in the order of 5.5 million tonnes of copper. So I mentioned to someone earlier that there was one slide that I've got that I'd like to put up, and I can probably walk out afterwards, because this one neatly illustrates why Wangoni is the right place to be. Now, the Minister mentioned the Macquarie Arc, and this map basically shows the Macquarie Arc. But there's a couple of things on this that are worth drawing to your attention. The rocks around Cadia are shown in this sort of pinky colour here, and the rocks around Northparkes are in that sort of pinky colour there. The only other area where those pinky colour rocks actually exist in New South Wales is around Wangoni. There are a lot of other rocks in the Macquarie Arc, north and south of Cadia and north and south of Northparkes, but the ones that contain the significant mineralisation are what are known as the Shoshonetic volcanics, and they only occur around Cadia, Northparkes and Wangoni. Now, I don't know how many people are particularly technical in this room, so I'll try and keep this as simple as possible. But basically, where you see white, that means high, and when you see purples, that means low. So one of the things we like about Wangoni is that it has this, what I call a stonking gravity low in this area here. So when you see the white rocks, that basically means the rocks are heavy in gravity, and where you see this, it means the rocks are light. And that means that here we're probably looking at mafic volcanics, and we know that where Alkane have been drilling in this area here, that they're hitting these sort of volcanics, and around south of Dunedoo. Where we see the hole in the gravity like this, that probably tells us that there are granites or intrusions happening. Now, the reason why that's important is if we have a look at Northparkes, you can see we've got a similar pattern. Here we have the heavy rocks, if you like, the volcanics in this area here, and then right underneath this area here, you can see a massive hole in the gravity. And here are where the Northparkes are located. All the deposits are Northparkes. So that's why we say that Wangoni's got the right gravity. It's also got the right magnetics. And one of the things we like is where you've got this gravity low, right on the margin of it is a stonking magnetic high. In fact, there's 3 of them in that Wangoni area, and another area we've just picked up down to the south in and around Dunedoo. So why magnetic high is important? Well, just by an analogy, we can see that Cadia has a distinct magnetic high associated with it. And this is the Cadia area here. You can see that the rocks surrounding Cadia are actually quite low in their magnetics, north and south. This is a different rock package in through here. But where the Cadia deposits are actually located are all on these discrete magnetic highs in through there. I mentioned alteration as well, and this is one of the things that's probably hidden Wangoni for quite a long period of time. There's been drilling done by CRA in 1992 and North in about 1995. The work that we've done is looked at the zonation in the alteration. So the names don't necessarily mean a lot, but the arrows mean something in particular. So what we're seeing with the alteration here is in these holes here that went to basement, is actually pointing us in the direction of where the magnomaly is in here. The zonation in the alteration from these holes is also pointing us in that direction. And down to the south, it's a bit equivocal in some ways, but we can actually interpret this as pointing us towards the mag anomaly as well. Now, the mag anomaly was actually drilled by North, but what they didn't do was actually get through the cover. They actually drilled 5 or 6 holes into it in here, and none of them actually hit the mag anomaly. The interesting thing we found was that one of the holes that they did drill actually hit an intrusion. Most of the other holes they hit were the volcanics, but just in this position here, they're probably just starting to get into the right sort of rocks. And they must have been very, very close, because one of the holes drilled to 50 metres and intersected pyrite, which should probably be very close to where the basement occurs. The Hillview is the prospect, which I'll show you some slides of shortly. So why is that important? Well, the type of alteration that we actually see in this area here is what we call sericite, and sericite occurs with the pyrite. And we also know that there's another mineral, albite, occurring in that area. When we have a look at Cadia, or Cadia East in particular, there's a blanket of this albite, quartz, sericite, pyrite alteration. This is not necessarily the best interpretation here, but it actually sits above the mineralisation at Cadia East. And some of the deeper mineralisation at Cadia Far East goes into a different zone of alteration. So where we're seeing this zone of alteration at Wangoni, we know that this is the sort of material we expect to find above Acadia. So, and it's pointing down is where we need to drill. And these are the sort of rocks from that area, and sorry if it's a bit rocky and getting boring, but basically what we're seeing here is these rocks are totally destroyed. What they were probably originally were volcanics, but the alteration is so intense that all we're seeing is quartz, sericite, albite and pyrite in through here. Now this is the sort of stuff that's very, very unusual to see in New South Wales. I worked at Parkes for a number of years. Normally the rocks in the Macquarie Arc are green or they're pink. You don't get white rocks. White rocks means that something severely bad has happened to these rocks. So we see this as quite severe alteration. And it's the sort of alteration we'd expect to see above a porphyry copper system. And the other bit of evidence that we've found that sort of confirms that is that very kindly the New South Wales Department of Resources and Energy, I think it's called now, part of TNI, have actually done some logging on one of the drill holes from the Hillview prospect within this area. And what we can actually see is different phases of alteration coming in through the core. One of the most interesting things is that the drill core actually intersected, and this wasn't identified before, a mineral called dickite. And dickite's the sort of mineral you find in an advanced argillic alteration zone. It's not very commonly found in New South Wales, but it's something you find in Chile, very much associated above where you actually get mineralisation in the porphyry copper systems. So this actually confirms in our mind that we're onto a significant alteration system above, probably what would be a porphyry gold copper system. Now Wangoni in summary originally was just a very small scale copper prospect or mineralised area. It's had very limited modern exploration, and part of that is because it's a little bit off the track in terms of the Macquarie Arc. Most of the work that people have focused on, or explorers have focused on in the Macquarie Arc, has sort of been in the Bathurst, Dubbo type area. This one's actually in what I call the land that time forgot. It's on the Gilgandra sheet, which Gilgandra is an area where people go looking for coal, not for porphyry gold copper systems. So what we've identified is it's part of an unidentified Cadia host rock sequence. It has an alteration system basically akin to what we'd expect from a porphyry copper system. And we've started to see that this alteration system zone, and that's giving us an idea of where we need to drill. It's under relatively shallow cover of what we see in, say, 2012, but for the 1990s explorer, that was significant cover. So what we're looking to do in this area is we've developed a robust drill target, and what we intend to do is actually to drill this. But because of where we're at the moment, we're quite happy to actually introduce partners into this area. One of the things with Wangoni is that we actually haven't had to go out looking for partners because people have been coming to us. So in summary, I suppose we see Oakland as the right junior explorer for Wangoni. It's the right sort of rocks in the right sort of area with the right sort of alteration and geophysical targeting of what we're looking for. Thank you.